Okay, so let's unpack this. Maybe you've looked up, seen a plane streaking by, or, watched a helicopter just hanging there, impossibly still, and you felt it, that pull, that itch to fly.
Mhm.
You've got the bug. And if you're in the U.S. thinking seriously about learning to fly, you probably hit this question pretty fast.
Mm.
Do I go the airplane route or the helicopter route?
It's absolutely the foundational decision, isn't it, for so many people starting out? And like the source material you shared really points out, there's just no single right answer for everyone.
Right.
Both types of aircraft, I mean, they offer these incredible experiences, totally unique challenges, and very, very different ways to, interact with the air, which naturally leads to different kinds of careers, different recreational flying.
Exactly. And our goal in this deep dive is really to take your source material, the stuff focused specifically on this choice, and really, dig into it. We want to lay out the landscape for you, the pros, the cons of each, the really key things you need to think about for your situation, hopefully bring some clarity to what feels like a huge decision.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming. Let's dive in and see what the sources tell us.
All right. So when most people picture learning to fly, they're probably thinking airplanes, right?
Usually, yeah.
We're talking everything from those little single-engine trainers you see buzzing around local airports, Cessnas, Pipers, that kind of thing, all the way up to, big corporate jets, airliners. It's often linked with covering distance, speed, that classic idea of air travel.
And the sources, they make it really clear why this is often the more common way in for a lot of folks. The biggest reason, cost, almost always. Initial training for an airplane is just generally less expensive, sometimes significantly less expensive than helicopters. Getting your private pilot certificate for an airplane might be, a fraction of what the helicopter equivalent costs.
That is a huge difference. Puts it within reach for way more people.
Right.
And it's not just the initial certificate cost, is it? Like ongoing stuff, renting a plane for practice or trips, that tends to be cheaper too.
Absolutely. That carries through. And beyond just the money, there's the sheer availability. Across the U.S., the infrastructure for airplanes is just vast.
Yeah.
You'll find way more flight schools, way more certified flight instructors, more aircraft readily available compared to the helicopter side of things. So scheduling lessons, finding resources, it's often just easier, more flexible.
Okay, makes sense. And they're built for, getting places efficiently over distance.
Yeah, generally more fuel efficient, definitely faster for point-to-point travel, especially longer distances.
Yeah.
If your main goal is, hopping between cities, covering ground quickly across states, the airplane really has the edge there.
And what about actually, learning to fly them? Is one easier initially?
Well, any flying is complex, let's be clear. But the sources do suggest that fixed-wing aerodynamics compared to the really intricate, constantly changing forces in a helicopter's rotor system might offer maybe a less steep initial learning curve.
Okay.
It kind of lets you focus on the core stuff, flight controls, navigation with a platform that feels a bit more inherently stable at first.
And career-wise?
Yeah.
For airplanes?
Oh, it's incredibly diverse.
Yeah.
The airlines are a big one, huge demand right now, but that's just, one path. The sources mentioned cargo flying, corporate aviation, becoming an instructor yourself, ag spraying, aerial photography, lots of possibilities.
Okay.
And like you mentioned, the infrastructure's there, that massive network of U.S. airports and airfields,
Right.
planning cross-country trips, getting to different places. It's just streamlined because, there are runways almost everywhere you'd want to go.
But that's also the catch, isn't it? Where you can go.
Exactly. That's the primary limitation. You are fundamentally tied to operating from established airports, places with runways. You can't just decide, I'll pop down in that field or, land on a building.
Unless it's a real emergency, and even then, the source is clear. Attempting an off-airport landing is risky. Very risky.
Right. So compared to helicopters, which we'll get to, there's just less versatility in where you can land, accessing rough spots or tight areas. Airplanes can also be more sensitive to certain weather that messes with runway operations, like really strong crosswinds maybe, or icing conditions that ground you.
Yeah, delays, diversions.
Exactly. And even with their speed advantage in the air, you've still got that ground travel time, right? Getting to the airport, getting from the airport at the other end. For shorter trips, that can actually add up and make it less practical sometime.
Okay, that gives a good picture of the airplane side. So let's shift gears. The world of rotorcraft.
Yeah.
Helicopters.
Right. These machines, they operate fundamentally differently. That incredible ability for vertical takeoff and landing, hovering, moving sideways, even backwards.
It really does feel like a different dimension of flight.
Uh,
And their big thing, their superpower, according to the sources, is that versatility, right?
Yeah.
The access.
Unmatched versatility and access, that's the key phrase. They can go places an airplane just physically cannot reach directly. Think urban rooftops with permission, of course, remote logging sites, offshore oil rigs, disaster areas, maybe even a patient's backyard in an emergency. It just opens up missions that are totally impossible for fixed wing.
And that hovering capability.
Invaluable. It's not just, looking cool. It's absolutely essential for critical jobs like search and rescue, precision, external load work, lifting things carefully detailed, aerial observation, maneuvering really precisely in tight spots or complex terrain.
And these unique abilities, they translate directly into unique careers.
Absolutely. The sources highlight roles that are pretty much exclusively helicopter territory. Air medical transport HEMS, as it's often called, supporting offshore oil and gas, law enforcement air support, patrolling utility lines, TV news gathering, heavy lifting and logging or construction, firefighting, a big one.
Wow, yeah.
And, let's be honest, there's also that undeniable cool factor for a lot of people. Mastering those complex controls, the unique maneuvers, it represents a really distinct challenge, a different kind of connection with the machine.
Okay, the versatility, the unique jobs, that sounds amazing. But there has to be a flip side, right? Because the sources are pretty blunt about the challenges, too.
Oh, absolutely. And the biggest hurdle, the one that often decides it for most people right away, cost. Again.
Here we go.
It is substantially higher than airplanes. For training, for operating, everything. Initial training, renting the aircraft, maintenance, fuel. It's all significantly more expensive for helicopters.
The source even put a number on just the private pilot certificate, didn't it? Like upwards of $80,000, maybe $100,000, or even more.
Yeah, that's the ballpark estimate they give. And remember, commercial ratings, which you need for pretty much any job, cost even more than that. It's just a completely different financial universe you're entering.
Wow. Okay, that's a major barrier.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, beyond the money, there's the inherent complexity of actually flying the helicopter. You're constantly managing three main flight controls at the same time. There's the collective.
Right, that controls lift, up and down.
Primarily, yeah. Changes the pitch of all the rotor blades together. Then there's the cyclic stick, which tilts the whole rotor disc that controls your forward, backward, and side-to-side movement. And then you've got the anti-torque pedals for your feet.
For yaw, controlling where it points.
Exactly, counteracting the torque from the main rotor spinning. You're constantly making small adjustments with all three.
The three-dimensional dance, I've heard people call it. Sounds like it takes serious coordination and quick reflexes.
It absolutely does. Mastering how those controls interact, it's a steep learning curve, no question. Also, generally speaking, helicopters are slower and have less range than airplanes. So for just straightforward long-distance travel, they're less efficient.
And how do they stack up against airplanes in bad weather?
They can be pretty vulnerable to certain conditions, especially strong, gusty winds makes precise hovering and maneuvering really difficult, sometimes dangerous. And low visibility is a big concern, particularly when you're operating close to the ground or in mountains or cities where, hitting something is a real risk. Precision is everything.
Yeah, the sources really hammered that point about precision. And they highlighted some specific, pretty serious helicopter-only risks, too.
Yes, and that's a key difference to understand. Every single maneuver, especially near the ground or in tight spots, demands extreme precision. The sources specifically call out critical emergency procedures like auto-rotation.
That's the engine failure procedure.
Right, where the rotor keeps spinning from the airflow coming up through it as you descend, still generating lift. They mentioned common dangerous mistakes pilots can make, like not getting into it immediately when the engine quits, not using enough anti-torque pedal during the descent, or messing up the rotor RPM management. Getting it wrong is not good.
Wow. So practicing that until it's second nature is crucial for survival.
Absolutely critical. Requires a lot of skill, a lot of practice. They also talk about dynamic rollover.
That sounds bad.
It is. It's a risk on the ground, usually. If one skid or wheel gets kind of stuck or you pivot too sharply around it during a sideways move, the helicopter can just rapidly roll over. The key, the only way to stop it once it starts, is instantly lowering the collective, basically dropping the aircraft slightly before that roll angle gets too big.
Yikes. Sounds incredibly fast. And there's one more specific risk they mentioned. Unexpected right yaw. Loss of tail rotor effectiveness, LTE.
Exactly, LTE. And the source makes a really important point. This is purely an aerodynamic issue, not usually a mechanical failure of the tail rotor itself. Okay.
It's basically a situation where, due to certain wind conditions or how you're maneuvering, especially at lower airspeeds, the tail rotor just isn't effective enough anymore to counteract the main rotor's torque. The nose just swings uncontrollably to the right. Understanding the conditions that cause it and knowing the specific immediate pilot actions needed, that's paramount for helicopter safety. These kinds of distinct, complex risks, they really define helicopter flying and the training required.
Okay. So weighing all of this up, the costs, the amazing capabilities, the steep challenges, the unique risks, how does someone listening figure out which path is actually right for them? The source had some good points on this.
Absolutely. The sources kind of frame this part around helping you, the listener, look inward at your own situation. And like we keep saying, budget is right there at the top.
Yeah, can't ignore it.
Given that really significant cost difference, the airplane pass just offers a much more financially accessible way into aviation for many people. If your budget is tight, that alone might heavily influence your decision. Then you've got to think really hard about your goals, right? What do you actually want to achieve with a pilot certificate?
Exactly. If your main thing is, say, recreational flying, weekend trips, maybe efficient personal travel for fun or business, well, airplanes are generally more practical, easier to find, and more affordable for that.
Yeah.
But if you're dreaming about those specific careers we talked about, search and rescue, air ambulance, offshore work, then yeah, the helicopter path is basically the only way to get into those specialized roles. And conversely, if flying for a major airline is the big dream, then the airplane path is the requirement.
Time commitment came up too, didn't it? It sounds like maybe helicopter training might demand more intense focus, maybe more hours to get truly proficient because of that complexity.
That's often the case, yeah. It just takes time to build that muscle memory and coordination. And then maybe the most important factor of all, it's about passion, aptitude. Which type of flying genuinely excites you on a gut level? Do you relish the idea of mastering that intricate three-dimensional dance of helicopter controls? Or are you more drawn to the maybe simpler mechanics and the feeling of just gliding smoothly through the air in an airplane?
And the sources strongly suggested the best way to figure that out
Is to actually go fly, take an introductory flight, a discovery flight in both types.
get your hands on the controls.
Exactly. Get in the cockpit with an instructor, feel what it's like, see which experience really clicks with you, which one resonates more. They even mention, feeling those helicopter controls, especially when you practice things like recovering power during an auto rotation drill. It needs quick, precise inputs. Does that feel natural to you, or does it feel kind of overwhelming?
Right. And thinking about your own tolerance for risk, how you approach learning really challenging procedures, that's part of it too.
Definitely. Understanding those unique risks for each type, like the aerodynamics of LTE and helicopters, or the critical timing for auto rotation, that's crucial not just for making the choice, but for being a safe pilot, whichever you choose.
So when you pull it all together, it seems really clear, doesn't it? There just isn't one best choice here.
Absolutely not. The ideal path. It's deeply personal. It depends entirely on your specific circumstances, your finances, your long-term dreams for flying, and honestly, which machine just speaks to you more.
So quick recap. Airplanes often mean more accessibility because of lower costs, they're practical for personal travel over distance, and they're the main path to airline careers.
And helicopters offer that incredible versatility and access. They appeal to people who really embrace a big technical challenge, and they're the key to those specialized, often really critical missions that only rotorcraft can handle.
Whichever way you're leaning, though, becoming a pilot, any kind of pilot, is a challenging journey, but hugely rewarding. It takes dedication. You've got to commit to learning continuously, your whole flying life, really. And above all, that unwavering focus on safety.
Yeah, the advice from the sources really holds up. Do your research. Yeah. Definitely talk to pilots who fly both airplanes and helicopters if you can. Get their real-world insights. And most importantly, get that hands-on intro flight experience in both. Feel the difference, see the world from each perspective, and, trust your gut.
Yeah. Entering the world of aviation, it's a big undertaking, no matter if you choose fixed wing or rotor wing. And as you weigh all the practical stuff, the cost, the speed, where you can land, there's maybe a deeper question the sources kind of nudge us towards. Beyond the numbers, beyond the capabilities, what does the unique way each aircraft moves through the air, what does that fundamentally tell you about the kind of relationship you want to have with flight itself?
That's a powerful way to think about it as you make the choice.
Indeed.